Block 1. Understanding the Reality Contract. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we are going to tackle one of the most universal and corrosive human experiences, disappointment. That sinking feeling in your stomach when a project you poured your heart into gets rejected. The frustration when a meticulously planned vacation is ruined by a canceled flight. The sting of being let down by a friend you thought you could count on. Disappointment is a constant companion in the human journey, a shadow that seems to follow every bright hope. But what if I told you there was a way to become almost completely immune to it? Not by lowering your standards or becoming a cold, unfeeling robot, but by adopting a powerful mental framework developed over 2,000 years ago by a man who knew more about hardship than most of us could ever imagine. We are talking about the Stoic philosopher Epictetus and his profound secret weapon, the reality contract. Now, I know what you might be thinking. A contract with reality? It sounds a bit abstract, maybe even a little strange. But I promise you, by the end of this video, you will see it as one of the most practical and life-changing tools you can ever possess. At its very core, the reality contract is a conscious, deliberate agreement you make with the universe, with life, and, most importantly, with yourself. It's a formal declaration to stop fighting a war you can never win. The war against what? The fundamental principle, the absolute bedrock of this entire philosophy is this: most of our suffering doesn't come from our circumstances, but from the gap between our expectations and our circumstances. We silently walk around with an unwritten contract in our heads, one that says, "The world be fair, people be reliable, my plans work out." And then every single time reality breaches this imaginary contract, we feel betrayed, angry, and disappointed. Epictetus, who was born a slave and later became a revered teacher, understood this on a visceral level. He couldn't control his station in life. He couldn't control his masters. He couldn't control his physical freedom for many years. So he focused on the only domain where he was an absolute sovereign, his own mind. He realized that true freedom wasn't about changing the world to fit his desires, but about changing his desires to fit the world. This is the essence of the reality contract. It's about tearing up that old unspoken contract of expectations and signing a new one, a contract based on truth. This new contract has two primary clauses, and they are the pillars of Stoic resilience. Clause 1. I accept that the universe operates on its own principles, entirely independent of my personal wishes and desires. The weather will do what it will. The economy will fluctuate. People will act according to their own nature and motivations, not mine. Traffic will be bad. This isn't pessimism, it's realism. It's acknowledging that you are part of a vast, complex system, not the center of it. You wouldn't get angry at a dog for barking or a river for flowing, because that is their nature. The reality contract asks you to extend that same grace to all external events. Clause 2, and this is the empowering part: I have absolute godlike control over one thing and one thing only, my own mind. Specifically, my judgments, my intentions, and my responses. You don't control the event, but you 100% control the story you tell yourself about the event. A flight cancellation isn't inherently a disaster. It is, factually, a change in your travel schedule. Calling it a disaster is a judgment you add. Choosing to see it as an opportunity to practice patience or to catch up on work in the airport lounge is also a judgment, one that is entirely within your power. This distinction is the most important you will ever make in your life. It is the dividing line between a life of perpetual frustration and one of profound tranquility. By signing this contract, you are not becoming passive, you are becoming strategic. You stop wasting colossal amounts of mental and emotional energy trying to mentally argue with what has already happened. You stop draining your battery fighting against things that were never in your control in the first place. Instead, all of that reclaimed energy can be channeled with laser-like focus onto the things you can influence: your character, your actions, your preparation, your kindness, your discipline. This is how Epictetus, a man in chains, could be freer than his own master. His master was a slave to his temper, his ambitions, his fear of the emperor. Epictetus was a master of himself. So, the reality contract is your declaration of internal sovereignty. It's the first step to building an inner fortress that no external event, no matter how chaotic, can ever breach. Now that we've laid out the core principles of this incredible concept, it's time to dig into the fine print. In the next section, we'll explore the terms and conditions of this contract by mastering the single most powerful tool in the Stoic practice: the dichotomy of control. Block 2. The fine print, mastering the dichotomy of control. All right, so we've introduced the revolutionary idea of the reality contract. It's an agreement to stop fighting with reality and to focus our energy where it actually matters. But like any important contract, we need to understand its terms and conditions inside and out. The legal framework, the fine print that gives this contract its power, is a core Stoic principle known as the dichotomy of control. This isn't just a philosophical concept. It's a diagnostic tool, a mental filter you can apply to every single situation you will ever face to instantly reduce anxiety and clarify your next move. It's breathtakingly simple in theory, but it takes a lifetime of practice to master. The dichotomy splits the entire universe of your experience into two distinct categories: things that are within your complete control and things that are not. Getting this distinction wrong is the primary source of human disappointment. Let's start with the bigger category, the one we spend most of our lives worrying about: things not within our control. This is reality's side of the contract. It's what the universe is responsible for, not you. First on the list are other people. You do not control their opinions of you, their actions, their emotions, or their decisions. You can influence them, certainly, through your own behavior, but you can never truly control them. Trying to do so is a recipe for endless frustration. You can be the kindest person in the world, and someone will still dislike you. You can give the most logical advice, and your friend will still make a poor choice. The reality contract says you must accept this. Their inner world is their domain, just as yours is yours. Next up, external events. This includes everything from the weather ruining your barbecue to the global economy impacting your investments. It includes traffic jams, flight delays, a pandemic, or your favorite coffee shop running out of oat milk. These are the brute facts of the world. To rage against them, to say, "This shouldn't be happening," is, as the Stoics would say, a form of madness. It's like yelling at the tide not to come in. It's a complete waste of your precious and finite energy. Your job isn't to command the waves, it's to learn how to surf them. Also in this category are the past and the future. You cannot change 1 second of what has already happened. Replaying past mistakes, grievances, or regrets over and over in your mind is a form of self-torture. It's like trying to rewrite a book that has already been published. Similarly, you cannot perfectly control the future. You can plan, prepare, and work towards a desired outcome, but you cannot guarantee it. The future is a confluence of countless variables, most of which are outside your influence. Finally, and this can be a tough one to swallow, you don't have complete control over your own body or your reputation. You can eat well and exercise, but you might still get sick. You can age. You can have accidents. These are features of the human condition. Similarly, your reputation is a collection of other people's opinions about you, and as we've established, you don't control their opinions. You can act with integrity, but you can't control how others interpret or gossip about your actions. So, if all of that is outside our control, what's left? This is where the magic happens. This is your side of the contract. The things that are 100% within your power. First and foremost are your judgments and opinions. Remember, it's not events that disturb us, but our judgment of events. Someone's critical comment is just a series of sound waves. The judgment that it is an insult and that it is terrible is what causes the pain. You have the power to choose your interpretation. You can judge it as an insult, or as information, or as the meaningless rambling of an unhappy person. That choice is entirely yours. Second, you control your intentions and motivations. Why you do what you do is completely up to you. You can go to work to just get a paycheck, or you can go to work with the intention of doing your best, being helpful to your colleagues, and learning something new. The external job is the same, but the internal experience, which is all you truly own, is radically different. Most importantly, you control your actions and your responses. This is your power made manifest in the world. While you don't control the traffic, you absolutely control whether you honk the horn in a rage or listen to a podcast and practice patience. You don't control your boss's mood, but you control whether you respond to their curtness with professionalism or with defensiveness. In the space between what happens to you and how you respond lies your freedom. Let's use a classic example. You're up for a big promotion. What's out of your control? The interviewer's biases, the other candidate's qualifications, the company's financial health, the final decision. Fretting about these things is useless. What in your control? The quality of your resume, how thoroughly you research the role, how much you practice for the interview, the effort you put into your current projects, and the grace and professionalism with which you accept final outcome, whatever it may be. The Stoic, armed with the reality contract, pours every ounce of their energy into the latter category and accepts the former as fate. This isn't passivity, it's the ultimate strategic advantage. It's about being a warrior, not a worrier. Now that we've meticulously read the fine print, how do we actually sign this contract and integrate it into our lives? In the next block, we're getting intensely practical. Block 3. Signing on the dotted line. Practical steps for daily life. Okay, we've explored the profound philosophy behind the reality contract and its operating system, the dichotomy of control. But philosophy that stays in the clouds is useless. The real question is, how do we bring this down to earth? How do we go from the contract to actually buy it moment to moment in the messy reality of our daily lives? This isn't a one-time signature, it's a daily reaffirmation. It's about building a new mental habit, forging new neural pathways. So let's get into the how-to guide. I'm going to give you 3 simple, powerful exercises you can start using today to make the reality contract the foundation of your mindset. First is the morning contract review. Before you reach for your phone, before you let the chaos of the world's news and other people's demands flood your mind, take just 2 minutes for yourself. This is your pre-flight check for the day. Sit down and think about the day ahead. What's on your schedule? A difficult meeting with your boss? A stressful commute? A family dinner that might have some tension? Identify the potential challenges. Now, for each one, explicitly apply the dichotomy of control. Let's say you have that big presentation. You say to yourself, okay, today I have my presentation. I cannot control if my colleagues will be receptive. I cannot control if the projector will malfunction. I cannot control my boss's final opinion of it. Those things are not mine. They belong to the universe. What I control is how well prepared I am, the clarity of my speaking, my calm and confident posture, and how I handle any questions or technical difficulties with grace. I will focus all my energy on these things. This practice, known in Stoicism as alea meditation or the premeditation of adversity, is incredibly powerful. It's not about being negative, it's about being prepared. You are mentally rehearsing your commitment to the contract, so when the challenges actually arise, your mind already knows the game plan. You've already decided what's your responsibility and what isn't, preventing emotional hijacking in the moment. The second exercise is the in-the-moment reality check. This is your tool for when you're in the thick of it. You feel that familiar wave of frustration, anger, or disappointment rising. Someone cuts you off in traffic. A colleague takes credit for your work. Your Wi-Fi dies right before a crucial video call. In that critical moment, that space between the event and your automatic emotional reaction, you need to create a pause. Develop a trigger phrase for yourself. It could be as simple as asking, "Is this in my control?" or "Check the contract," or even just "Mine or not mine?" The power of this pause is immeasurable. It interrupts the primitive, reactive part of your brain and engages the rational, thoughtful part. The driver who cut you off, is his reckless driving in your control? No. What is? Your own safety, your own emotional state, and your own driving. So you take a deep breath, create space, and let him go on his angry way, preserving your own peace. Your colleague's unethical behavior, is that in your control? No. What is? Your own integrity, documenting your work, and deciding on a calm, professional way to address the situation, if necessary. This check-in is a mental repetition, a bicep curl for your Stoic muscle. Each time you do it, you get stronger, and the pause becomes more automatic. Finally, we have the evening performance review. This is your end-of-day debrief. It takes 5 minutes and can be done in a journal or just in your head. You reflect on the day and ask yourself 2 simple questions. First, at what points today did I get upset or anxious about things that were outside of my control? Don't judge yourself for it, just notice it. I got really frustrated when that meeting ran late. That was outside my control. The goal is simply awareness. Second question, at what points today did I successfully distinguish between what I could and couldn't control and focus my energy effectively? Maybe you were proud of how you handled that traffic jam, or how you didn't get drawn into an argument online. Celebrate these small wins. This evening review is not about beating yourself up for your failures. It's about learning from your daily experience. It's like a coach reviewing game tape with an athlete. You see where you followed the game plan and where you deviated. Over time, this practice refines your instincts. You start to see the patterns, and the principles of the reality contract become less of a conscious effort and more of a natural way of being. These 3 practices, the morning prep, the in-the-moment check, and the evening review, are the pillars of a life lived by the reality contract. They are simple, free, and can be started right now. But as you begin this journey, you might run into some common mental roadblocks and misconceptions. Let's tackle those head-on in our next section. Block 4. Avoiding the loopholes. Is this just apathy? So, we have the contract, and we have a practical guide to implementing it. For many of you, this might feel like a breath of fresh air, a release from the burden of trying to control the uncontrollable. But for others, a nagging voice of skepticism might be whispering in your ear. Isn't this just a fancy way of giving up? If I just accept everything, won't I become a passive doormat? Is this a philosophy of apathy? This is an incredibly important question, and it points to the most common and dangerous misunderstanding of Stoicism and the reality contract. If we get this wrong, we risk trading anxiety for indifference, which is not the goal at all. So let's shine a bright light on these potential loopholes and misconceptions and prove, once and for all, that signing the reality contract is an act of empowerment, not resignation. The first and most pervasive myth is that Stoicism is about suppressing or eliminating emotions. People hear "accept reality" and think it means you're not supposed to be sad when something sad happens, or disappointed when a hope is dashed. This is completely false. The Stoics were not unfeeling robots. When you sign the reality contract, you will still feel the initial sting of disappointment. You're human. The difference is what happens next. The untrained mind latches onto that feeling, feeds it with stories. "This is a disaster. This always happens to me. My whole week is ruined," and allows the initial feeling to metastasize into prolonged suffering.
The Stoic practitioner, on the other hand, acknowledges the feeling without being consumed by it. They observe it with a kind of detached curiosity. Ah, there is the feeling of disappointment. That is a natural reaction to an unexpected outcome. I will allow it to be here, but I will not grant it the power to dictate my actions or my state of mind. It's the difference between being tossed about in a stormy sea and being a skilled surfer who rides the waves. You still feel the power of the water, but you are not at its mercy. The goal isn't numbness. It's a stable, resilient peace that can coexist with the full range of human emotions. You don't suppress the feeling, you simply refuse to endorse the destructive judgments that usually accompany it. The second major misconception is even more critical: the idea that accepting what you can't control means you should never try to change anything. This is the passive doormat argument. Why fight injustice if you can't single-handedly end it? Why start a business if the economy is out of your control? This profoundly misunderstands the entire point. The reality contract is the ultimate tool for action. By consciously deciding to stop wasting even one iota of energy on things outside your control, you liberate a massive reserve of power, focus, and determination that you can now aim with surgical precision at the things you control. Think of a social activist. They cannot control whether a particular law gets passed. They cannot control the deeply ingrained prejudices of other people. If they focus on that, they will burn out in despair. But they control their own actions. They can organize a protest, write to their representatives, educate their community, donate to the cause, and embody the change they want to see. The reality contract doesn't tell the activist to give up. It tells them to stop agonizing over the final outcome and to focus with relentless intensity on their own efforts. It transforms a cry of despair, "I can't change the world," into a powerful declaration of intent. I will do everything within my power to make my corner of the world better. It is the absolute opposite of passivity. It is the blueprint for focused, intelligent, and sustainable action. Finally, there's the objection that this is all easy to say but impossible to do. And you know what? That's partially true. This is not a quick fix. It is a lifelong practice. It is a form of mental training, no different from training your body at the gym. The first time you try to lift a heavy weight, it feels impossibly hard. Your muscles shake, your form is clumsy, but you don't give up. You show up the next day and the next, and with consistent practice, what was once impossible becomes manageable, and eventually it becomes easy. Every minor frustration in your day, every traffic jam, every rude email, every spilled coffee is a repetition, a chance to train your stoic muscle. Acknowledging the difficulty is part of the process. The contract doesn't promise an easy path, but it does promise a destination worth striving for. So, what is that final destination? What is the ultimate reward for a life lived by these principles? That's what we'll explore next. Block 5. The Payoff. Building Your Inner Citadel. We have journeyed through the core of Epictetus's most powerful teaching. We've defined the reality contract, we've dissected its terms in the dichotomy of control, we've laid out a practical daily guide for living it, and we've debunked the myths that might hold us back. Now we arrive at the most important question: why? What is the ultimate payoff for all this mental work? What does a life truly built upon the foundation of the reality contract look and feel like? The answer is not just less disappointment. It's something far more profound, something the Stoics described as building an inner citadel, a fortress within your own mind that is safe, tranquil, and completely untouchable by the chaos of the external world. The first and most immediate benefit is a level of resilience you may have never thought possible. Life will continue to throw its punches. Projects will fail, people will leave, plans will crumble, and unexpected tragedies will occur. These things are part of the contract we all sign at birth. But for the person living by the reality contract, these events no longer have the power to shatter their spirit. A setback is no longer a personal failure or a sign that the universe is against them. It is simply an event. It is data. It's an unexpected turn in the road that requires a new plan. The emotional devastation that comes from a violated expectation is gone, replaced by a calm, clear-headed assessment of the new reality. You become less like a fragile glass, which shatters on impact, and more like a ball of rubber, which absorbs the impact and bounces back, perhaps even stronger. This is the essence of anti-fragility. Your inner citadel remains secure, not because the attacks stop, but because you realize the attacks can never reach the true you, the you that resides in your choices, your judgments, and your character. The second major payoff is a massive increase in your personal effectiveness and a surplus of energy. Think for a moment about how much mental and emotional energy the average person spends every single day on things they cannot control. Worrying about what others think, ruminating on past mistakes, complaining about the traffic, the government, the weather, getting angry about things they see on the news. It is a constant draining hemorrhage of our most vital resource. When you sign the reality contract, you plug that drain. All of that energy previously wasted on fighting unwinnable battles is reclaimed. It's a huge surplus that you can now consciously invest into the things that actually matter and are within your sphere of influence. You have more energy for your work, more focus for your creative projects, more patience for your family, more discipline for your health. You stop being a passive reactor to the world's whims and become a proactive creator of your own life, moving with purpose and intention. Finally, and perhaps most beautifully, this practice transforms your relationships with other people. So much of the conflict and pain in our relationships comes from trying to control others, from being disappointed when they don't live up to the image we've created for them in our minds. We get frustrated when our partner isn't as tidy as we are, or when our friend doesn't take our advice, or when our children choose a different path than the one we envisioned. The reality contract asks you to release them from the prison of your expectations. It empowers you to accept them fully and unconditionally as they are, separate, sovereign individuals on their own journey. When you stop trying to control them, you can start truly loving them. This leads to a profound sense of compassion, a reduction in conflict, and relationships that are based on genuine acceptance rather than conditional approval. Remember, Epictetus developed this philosophy not in a comfortable study, but as a slave in Rome. His body was owned by another man, but he knew with absolute certainty that his mind was his kingdom. He built his inner citadel in the most hostile of environments, proving that our external circumstances have no final say over our inner peace. So, the reality contract isn't just an idea, it's a declaration of your own sovereignty. It's the key to unlocking a state of mind the Stoics called not apathy, but a serene and unshakable tranquility. The contract is on the table. The only signature required is your own. Will you sign it? Thank you so much for watching. If this video helped you reframe your relationship with reality, please hit that like button, subscribe for more wisdom, and let me know in the comments. What's one thing you're going to stop trying to control starting today? Until next time, stay strong and stay tranquil.